subject. Yes.
So, would you support giving the White House the ability to raise the debt limit on its own, such as what Senator McCarthy is proposing? And the second question, the Congressional Budget Office put out a report today saying that if the current fiscal path stays the same over the next 5 years, we'll reach a record in national debt. What is your proposal for solving that?
Well, you've seen what we've done already. In the IRA, we actually cut the deficit by $300 billion. For every dollar we spent, we put a dollar into deficit reduction, unlike our Republican friends who just did huge tax cuts for the ultra-rich, for the billionaire corporations, and increased the deficit by close to $2 billion.
You say they don't have a plan. You're basing it on their 2022 plan. Have you had any conversations with Speaker McCarthy? And at what stage are you ready to have those conversations?
Well, look, Speaker McCarthy is feeling the pressure from our proposal, show us your plan. So this week he said he's going to get a whole bunch of his Republicans together and see if he can pass something that has 218 votes. Here's the problem. The deep, deep cuts that the MAGA Republicans want, which probably even exceed the cuts that are over here, will probably not be tolerated by some of the mainstream Republicans. When one of the leading Republicans, I believe it was Granger, said, let's cut food stamps, several other Republicans said, I'm not voting for that. So they're in a real pickle because the deep, deep cuts that some of them want will probably not be acceptable to others. And this shows you a sampling of that, but it's probably even worse than that in their budget negotiations. Yes?
So House Republicans are still saying for the most part they won't drastically reduce defense spending, but they are starting to float some potential Pentagon cuts with things like maybe base realignment and closure, procurement reform. Is there any room for cooperation there?
Look, when it comes to paying our debts, we think we should pay them free and clear of any hostage taking, any brinksmanship. We should do what we've done in the past on a bipartisan basis, come up with a plan that pays our debts without brinksmanship, without hostage taking, without saying only if I get ABC. Usually, at least if past is prologue, the party that is demanding certain changes before they reduce the deficit, before they pay our debts, loses. That's been the lesson of history. Because the American people don't want those kind of games. They don't want those kind of shenanigans. They know how dangerous they are. Yes.
On the debt limit, Congresswoman Spanberger said last week that she believes that defaulting on the debt poses a far greater threat than the Chinese spy balloon that they flew across the country last year and also the 3 UFOs that were shot down over North America in the last week. Do you agree with that assessment, that defaulting on debt?
Look, I'm not going to make a comparison, but defaulting on the debt would be devastating. It would raise interest rates dramatically. It would have our retirees, whether they be Social Security or veterans or people who have their 401ks and their pensions, dramatically lose savings. It would cost them, on average, the cost of buying a new home $100,000. So that's devastating. Now, obviously, we have to make sure, and our military and our intelligence services are making sure we're safe when it comes to these balloons. We have to do both. Yes.
You and other Democrats sort of mentioned a lot about Social Security and Medicare. I was wondering if you share the same concern about Medicaid?
Well, I do. I think we do. It's just that Republicans have focused on Social Security and Medicare as the big entitlements. We believe Medicaid does a great deal. It helps poor people. It also helps a lot of very middle-class people as well. So it's a very popular program, and we would defend it. We don't think any cuts on Medicaid, just like cuts on Medicare and Social Security, should be attached to debt ceiling in terms of brinksmanship. Yes?
Social Security and Medicare do have some long-term issues with solvency. When and how do Democrats think that should be?
Well, that's an issue that should be separate from debt ceiling. We believe we want to preserve. We don't want to cut benefits. We don't want to privatize. We don't want to do the kinds of things that Republicans have talked about in that area. And we have some plans to make it solvent, which you'll hear from down the road. Okay? Thank you, everybody.